Yeah, we do. Good, Ross. Thanks for subbing in, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, of course. While we're waiting for everybody, dude, I'm stoked for this MVHQ staff league to fire up. Nothing I like more
Oh
than
yeah.
fantasy football with the boys.
Hell yeah. Do we have a draft time? I haven't even looked.
I don't think so yet. I think we're still waiting on one or so.
I'm in like 4 leagues. It's hard to keep track of all of them.
Oh, all right. Should we wait a minute or two for some more folks, Jake? I'm happy to take your lead on whenever you want to get into it.
Yeah, we can give it a couple minutes. Usually people start rolling in a few minutes after. You see we're in here.
Just on time.
Yes, sir. How was the weekend, man?
Good, dude. Had a little bit of a mix. Saturday was a tried and true California beach day, and Sunday was a tried and true living with your significant other at home cleaning day. Um, but yeah, the duality of the weekend. How about you?
Love that. Yeah, mine was good too. I did a little camping trip with my wife's side of the family. So it was a lot of fun. Did like a river float. It was a great time.
That's
Always love a
awesome,
good
man.
river float. Yeah.
For sure,
Uh, yeah. Just chilled yesterday for the most part.
yes, dude. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think we got the crowd. If you want to get into it.
Yeah, we can get it going here. Welcome y'all. New Wake and Jake here. Monday morning on the 18th of October, or sorry, August. Get ahead of myself. Um, yeah, we got Ross Boss here with me for subbing in for our sub with Jinzo out and Silva out this week as well. But thankfully, we have the legendary Ross Boss um, to give his takes, his perspective, his analysis, and his wonderful banter as well. What's up, Ross? How you doing, man?
What up, everybody? Ross Boss in the morning. Jake's thinking it's October because wake him up when September ends. Y'all already know what I'm talking about. Happy to be here, dude. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, dude. We can get into it right away here. Don't want to miss a beat. Don't want to waste anyone's time. We'll start with macro stuff as always. Honestly, probably might be a later episode. We'll see. I don't have as much as normal, I would say, on the docket. But you never really know where we go down the rabbit hole for. So, yeah, starting off Bitcoin. As we're recording the show right now, getting a little bit of a tiny little bit of a bounce, and at 116. 300 down 3.2% on the week. ETH slightly up on the week, about 1.7% looks like, sitting at like 43.50. Solana up a couple percent as well, 183. Yeah, largely we're kind of chopping here. There's some green, there's some red when I'm looking through these alts, mainly red on the alts front of things for most of these big coins. Um, yeah, we did see. We did see quite a nice pump last week, kind of around, when was it? 13th. What is that, like Wednesday or so? Wednesday, kind of middle of last week, and it has since retraced a good amount. I am largely. I said it last week, and I still feel this way. I feel like there's gonna be plenty of chop throughout this month, and I'm not really looking too much to be trading in and out of majors at the moment. Not really looking to any perps. I just don't think it's a great environment with usually low volume summer hours. People are touching grass before the kids have to go back to school. So just in general, I'm largely looking to go a little bit more down the risk curve into on chain stuff, which has been a lot of opportunities. Has been pretty good so far this month, which we'll get into a little bit later. But just in general, a couple things on the Bitcoin front. I guess in the short term, I always quote people who I find are really good traders. Usually like the same people most of the time, just because I know they're really good traders. People like Web3 Quant. Who's leaning both him and D Farmer, I guess on the shorter term, are leaning a little bit more bullish than bearish. I mean, that's a good thing. Maybe we do bounce here soon and get a sustained bounce. I certainly can't predict the future. Here's a tweet in voice hangout chat that I'm posting along with this. Oh, it's not loading. I wonder if it's load for you guys. Maybe it's just my internet. I don't know. But he's basically saying that long risk return right now is better than short risk return, but I think you can give it some time. Essentially, saying similar, let it play out, but he would lean on the long side than the short side, aka not really freaking out, kind of just chilling for the moment. And D Farmer is pretty similar here. He tweeted this morning that he thinks the pullback is mostly done. For now. And he's pretty interested still in ETH. He's always been the huge ETH bull. I think he bid some Bitcoin as well last night. So kind of what we're seeing right now, largely just kind of still feel like there's going to be a decent amount of chop for the next few weeks at least. But in the shorter term, we might get a nice little relief here relatively soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I want to add some additional context, Jake, for what we might be seeing. So I think there's two main things affecting the majors, or that did affect them going into the weekend. So the first I want to call out is, I believe it was on Thursday, there was a PPI. So that is the Producer Price Index. And essentially that tracks the level of inflation in production output within the US. That came in a lot hotter than expected. So the correlation and the impact that this had on the rest of the markets is that because the PPI came in hot, it indicates that there is more inflation than was anticipated. And this was like a sizable increase in terms of what was expected. So, like, usually they get it to about 0.1% to 0.2% accuracy of the prediction. This one was off, I believe, by over 0.5%. So that was a substantial cause for concern in terms of saying inflation was high. The main outcome of inflation potentially being high is the expected Fed rate cut. So you can use Polymarket, and I would say for anyone listening into this, Polymarket is a great resource for looking at some of these Fed rate cuts and just some of the things that they're expected to do. Because the market, whole debate on how efficient it really is, but it really does price in these rate cuts pretty drastically. The thought being that if the Fed does cut interest rates, it will essentially be cheaper to borrow money. The cheaper it is to borrow money, the more money goes into the stock market. Stocks go up, whippy. Prior to this PPI, it was about a 90% expected outcome that at the next Fed FOMC meeting, they would be cutting rates. After this high PPI, it dropped to about 70% chance. Again, because we got the information that there was more inflation than expected. So as a result, less chance of an interest rate cut, therefore stocks less priced in to move upwards. So I think what happened there on Thursday is that there was just mass liquidations as a result. There were so many people going long, so many people just leveraged up with the ETH move when it first hit like 4,700 last week. So I really do think this big reversal there, that was like the big macro event on my calendar that I believe is a cause for a lot of this pullback. So to your point, Jake, I do think most of that is getting digested. I think, to your point, definitely favors of the upside rather downside than from here. But yeah, just wanted to give that context that I think that had a major impact in the crypto markets over the weekend.
Love that. Yeah, that was really good. I love the shout on Polymarket. I check that quite frequently, especially for this very highly anticipated next rate cut decision in September. Right now, looks like 71% chance for a 25 basis cut decrease, and then or basis point decrease, and then a 3% for a 50. It was a bit higher, I think, last week. I want to say it was like about 80, over 80% total, or if there is a rate cut or not. So it did fall slightly as you mentioned, from those PBI numbers.
Yeah, and then the only other thing I want to point out from a macro on my end is I've seen on Twitter the murmurings of this large ETH unstaking. I don't know enough about how long it takes to unstake from ETH or what large staking pool people are focused on, but just based on some headlines and me asking chat about it, it appears that there's about $4 billion in ETH that are in the process. They're queued up to be unstaked. So a lot of people have this expectation of a massive ETH sell that's going to be hitting within the next couple of days or weeks here. Don't know the exact time frame, but that is something that I did see on Twitter. So I do also think that that had part to do with the pullback, is that ETH just got so violent to the upside. People saw this unstaking, so I think there's a bit of front running going on here. I would imagine at this point it's largely priced in. But that was another macro item I wanted to chat with you, Jake, because that certainly caught my eye.
Yeah, I didn't see that personally, but I love the shout. Um, let's see. I don't think I have anything else from as far as the major coins go, Bitcoin, ETH, macro perspective. Was there anything else you wanted to talk through before we move on here to bigger alts, Ross, or anyone else in the crowd?
At my end, Jake, I lockstep with how you're reading it. By the way, I definitely think we could see some more chop here, but I personally do still like the upside with everything we got.
Great to hear, man. We like some confluence, absolutely. Yeah, as far as alt fraud goes, I honestly don't have much on the big alt stuff either. Kind of just a repeat of last week, where I like ETH betas a good amount, with ETH ripping and then being suppressed for so long alongside ETH. Stuff that has a good narrative to it. Stuff like ENA or Athena is the brand. ENA is like the ticker or whatever. The stable coin. The stable coin. I want to say like company protocol. I honestly don't really know exactly how they go. But a lot of super sharp people on that. It's kind of a bet on stablecoins themselves getting high yield. I think the risk on for that, as well as adoption in the TradFi sector. They're seeing a lot of good contracts that they're able to land with big companies, and also bigger companies using Athena in their treasuries, their stablecoin. So I think that one's really good. ENS mentioned again last week. It kind of aligns well with ETH culture. It aligns well with NFTs. And then just people using, going back to the .eth names as well. I think ENS is a nice little beta in itself. And then MOG from the meme coin side of things, I think is the strongest ETH coin right now. Obviously, Pepe is the other notable one. But I think MOG being a bit newer and more culturally, I would say, relevant in as far as like, maybe not culturally more relevant is the best word of saying it, but more like, I guess, trendy. It would be better. So those are kind of my few favorites. Ross, curious if you like any of that thesis, or if you have anything else on like the bigger alt side of things.
Yeah, I love the thesis on ETH alts. I definitely think that's where I'm looking. Solana is a tricky position for me right now because I can sort of see it both ways. At least from what I'm seeing with Solana, the play over there in terms of alts would more so be to these launch pads, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later. So I'm not going to get too into that. But I love the ETH plays, like you were saying, with ENA and Athena. My big play for the alt world is Zora. I'm not sure if you guys have talked about it on Wake and Jake recently, but for those who don't know, Zora is essentially this new coin. It's not new, apologies. Is a coin that's going to be featured in Coinbase's new app. So the Coinbase is launching a new app that's going to be for basically tokenizing everything, right? It's like the thesis we've been fed for 3 years at this point, but they made a huge presentation a couple months ago and said that it's all going to be built on Zora. So far, the beta version of Zora is out, and it's basically looks just like Instagram, but the only difference is that you can actually buy the posts. In terms of the adoption of that, I'm unsure, but it's really just a bet on, is Coinbase going to shill a coin, and are they going to activate a flywheel? So Zora does have a pretty nice flywheel in it that people smarter than me have written threads on. I don't know all the in and outs of it, but I really, really love Zora personally. And I'm not just trying to shill it. It's such a massive market cap. Buy it, don't buy it. It doesn't affect me at all. But I personally really love it because it has that Coinbase backing. It has CB Ventures behind it. So in terms of risk reward, I love it. It's at $1 billion market cap. But it's a really easy trade for me. I got in at the keynote announcement from about 4 cents to now 10. I still think it has a lot of upside to it because, again, you just have Coinbase behind it, and they have a flywheel that they've yet to turn on. So that's been a good one for me that I've been buying on this dip.
Yeah, I really like that call. I think you have to kind of see it as more of a bigger picture. Like, you're not just betting on Zora, you're betting on like Coinbase. It's essentially like the way for people to bet on Coinbase, since Coinbase is not going to release their own token, which they've said like so many times, and still there's still people who think that they are. I'm still of the mind that they won't. I just don't think it makes sense for them as like a publicly traded company to have a coin called Base as well. I mean, it's still in their bio. We have no plans to issue a new network token on the Base X accounts. So I think this is kind of their way of doing it. And I mean, they obviously back a lot of different companies, and I think that is their way of doing it. Is that they just invest in companies who are releasing tokens, and then they get allocation that way. But in particular, Zora, with it being the framework of this base app, which is like their big product release that they hyped up. They just had like a maybe just mention it, but they had like a, I don't know, like a spotlight convention thing. I forget what they call it. Like Apple does these kind of things.
Keynote.
Yeah. They just had one of those with Brian Armstrong, and Jesse, and like this was like their big release was the base app, and it's all being powered by Zora in itself. So you're essentially just betting on Coinbase by buying Zora. So I would encourage you to think about it not as like a Zora specific coin, but more as like just a Coinbase play, and that can really, I would say, elevate the potential, market caps that this kind of coin can hit, and really why we've seen it moon quite a bit just in the past month. I think it's up like
Yeah.
10x. So
Oh yeah, they're crushing it. I mean, to your point, Jake, like I don't think Coinbase will launch their own coin. I'm fairly confident that any insider at Coinbase had an opportunity to buy a lot of Zora because I mean, just like the price action leading up to the announcement is very telling as to there being some insider buys. But to your point, it really is just a bet on Coinbase. And like if you're looking for comps in the market, Pengu's whole thing is just a play on Abstract, which is supposed to be this content chain. What I really like about Zora is that they are pushing this new form of social media. So, like in my mind, the closest trade I have seen to Zora was virtual. And if you guys remember from just the AI show that I used to do, it was so clear and so bullish early on just the virtuals token because of this ecosystem of emerging assets. As I've traded longer and longer, like one of the best plays you can look for is just where is the meta going to be, and then betting on that infrastructure, what's going to feed that meta. So whether Zora is actually going to be able to create this new asset class of like a social media Instagram esque platform where you're actually buying the posts, TBD, because we've seen that touted on Pathfinder and Twitter and other platforms, and it hasn't always worked out. But you're betting on Coinbase to make it happen. They have infinite money to throw at it. I feel like social media is what all of these tech companies want to funnel into. So for me, it's a bet on Coinbase, but it's also just an early play on what might be a new asset rotation that we'll see later. It's very speculative, but I feel like with the Coinbase backing, I'm not too worried about the downside there. So yeah, again, not trying to shill it, but just wanted to give the full perspective of that altcoin for me. And it also is on base, so you do have that tie into ETH. That's why it's my preferred way to play the altcoin game right now.
love it. Really great shout. Um, Anything else on big alt stuff? Anyone in the crowd? Always feel free to jump in here too. All right, sweet. We can move on. Yeah, on-chain stuff. There was. I honestly have not been following this because I feel like a lot happened while I was touching grass camping over the weekend. But the light presale was a big one last week. In the beginning of the week, I think it was like right after we concluded Wake and Jake is when it went live, or like a few hours after. Initially, a lot of fun. This is the Heaven Dex. Is some new launchpad platform. It was started by some KOL. I forgot what their name was. I think it's like Patience something something. Anyway, it opened up with a lot of FUD. Price was a lot lower than the pre-sale, which anyone could get into the pre-sale and send funds over to it. I think they raised like 20 something million. Refunded a little bit back to people who contributed a ton. And then yeah, price was under for a little bit, and then since then has really soared over the coming days afterwards. I think it went up to at least 3 or 4x pre-sale.
Yeah, I think it's like 4x.
Yeah. So really good win for a lot of people. I know a lot of people in MHQ were in the pre-sale. Hopefully, they were able to get good timing and didn't capitulate lower. But so yeah, so I just want to bring that part up. Ross, were you following that at all? I don't really have great analysis here because I wasn't really around, and I also didn't contribute to pre-sale, so I wasn't following it too closely. But I know
Yeah.
a lot of people in WHQ did, so I want to at least bring it up.
I was following it. I didn't participate. For me, the launchpad play is always tricky because it's just like we're at a stage in crypto where there's so many different launchpads, and it's difficult to know which are actually going to differentiate. I think the last launchpad I got really excited for was Boop. I think a lot of us at MVHQ were, and like we saw that it's just the difficulty of actually executing and having that stickiness. It usually is contingent on having a few runners and having people actually adopt the platform. I think a lot of that kind of coincides with having a main character. Like the Bonk launchpad worked so well because you had Bonk Guy sort of shilling some of those coins and pushing everything higher. So I did see it. I would say it was really good timing in terms of when they launched because that was when ETH was just going parabolic and, a lot of coins were getting bid in that zone. So definitely solid for the people who sat tight. I know the price action was a little all over the place with light on the initial launch, but yeah, it looks like it's doing pretty well. From what I've heard, they're being touted as potentially the new launch pad for the ICM meta. I know Ben Pasternak with the Believe ecosystem just catches a lot of like hate in general to how much it's actually warranted, unsure. But I think the thing with the Believe ecosystem is that there was like 3% fees on pretty much everything, and a lot of people were questioning the viability of the product. So, from what I've heard, the Light Launchpad is supposedly vetting projects a lot more closely, trying to legitimize the things that are launched on their Launchpad. I haven't really poked around too much on it myself, but that's sort of the thesis, at least from what I've heard, is that this might be that new ICM meta. It seems like people still like that thread and idea of being able to launch actual companies in a launchpad some way. So it's one to keep up with. I would say with anything, it's just a risk of actual stickiness and like, are people going to use that over pump fund in the long term? Who's to say? But congrats to everyone in HQ who played. That was definitely a very nice cook.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we just continue to have these launchpad wars. I feel like there's one every week. New one that pops up, gets a little steam, and then goes away. I'm not super hopeful, to be honest. Just because, I mean, we've seen this already so many times with bags, the moonshot, and I mean, 9gag even had one, and Jupe has their own too. I mean, there's just like it goes on and on. I think, I mean, obviously, it's just such a lucrative business to just sit there and rake in fees from people launching coins. So I get why there are so many big competitors trying to get into the game and take that market share because, obviously, Pump's revenue has been quite insane. One of the highest for any crypto product for the past year or two. And people want a chunk of that, right? So they're going to come in, and I think the better for the most part. Until we find a product that works well for all parties. I don't know if that's really possible. I don't know. I don't really know where it's going to go, but it is fun to play kind of the new hot thing. It brings in, it brings in some volume as long as, not too much is being extracted out of the ecosystem. So it's what it is, kind of, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. We'll see what happens. It seems to be a never-ending launchpad war at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree, Jake, and I like your it is what it is. Like that's exactly how I feel about it because, it did 4x. It easily could have just gone to zero after launch. And launch pads in my mind at this stage again, I think are just a bit of a crapshoot. So I think just give it some time. If it clearly is the winner, more than a launch pad, I would be looking for a new meta to arise. I think that's like the most important thing. And I
Yep.
think the success of the Believe app, you could contribute to it ushering in the ICM meta, right? Because they had Dupe and they had these other apps. So like that was I would say a mini meta. Like it only lasted a couple of weeks. But what that launchpad did that was so successful was ushered in that new meta. So everyone was looking on their launchpad specifically. If you compare that to Boop, they didn't do anything, right? They just continued to have memes. We already have memes elsewhere. So for any new launchpad, sometimes the pre-sale is going to work, sometimes it's not. But in terms of like as traders where to be thinking, I would really be looking at like the new asset classes, the new metas, those types of things. If they are associated and unique to a launch pad, lock in. That's where you're going to find a huge edge every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good call. I think anything that has, like, if there's going to be coins launched by people that are reputable and building something real, people are going to buy those coins, and even more so if there's some type of revenue generation or like flywheel that's combined with these coins. And whatever launchpad they launch on is going to benefit from that. So if there are launchpads that are able to consistently bring in those types, like you said, ICM, Internet Capital Markets, real businesses that are trying to launch their own coin, then I think they can be successful. I think Believe, for some reason, they were doing it for a while and then they just dropped off, and like they haven't really been able to bring in onboard new people. If they do start again, then I would start being bullish on Believe again. But if there's other platforms that are able to do it too, then I think they'll start to capture market share as well. But I think that is a good one to continue to watch out for, as long as there's somewhere that is able to bring in reputable people in the space who want to launch a coin and build around that coin. Then people are going to be buying that coin regardless of what launchpad it's on. Yeah. Anything else about on-chain stuff, shitters? Before we move on to some fun NFTs.
Oh, you read my mind. I was going to say, speaking of on chain, the OG on
Hey,
chain, some
yes,
pictures.
yes. Yeah, look at Drew stuff. Largely pretty up and down, I would say. For NFTs over the past week, I'm looking some majors down, some up nicely. CryptoPunks down about 10%, Apes down 15%, Pudgy's down 13%, Zuki down 15%, Ladies down 15%. So we're getting the pullback for sure. Couple spots of brightness though, mainly Moonbirds, which, I mean, man, every single time we do the show, it's like Moonbirds up another 40-50% on the week. They were just like half an ETH, I think, maybe a couple months ago, a month and a half ago, maybe like one ETH. Yeah, I don't know. OpenSea won't let me go back that far. Let's see. Um, yeah, I mean, continuing to see a lot of bull posts about Moonbirds. I think it was, I want to say Mike Dudas is like behind it, as well as Spencer Ventures. So there's like big VC money who are also have big followings as well. And um, yeah, OGD Farmer had a really big bull post on them as well, saying he swept a ton of them, and he called them the pudgies of this cycle. So I thought that was a pretty big proclamation to call something like that. I think they're continuing. I feel like a lot of people aren't taking them seriously, so that also could fuel a rally further. If a lot of people are fading the initial pump, that means there's still plenty of people on the sidelines to buy the top as well. So who knows? I still haven't bought a Moonbird. I'm not really still not. I don't know. Still can't really get myself behind it, especially after a big pump. But want to at least bring up the Moonbird stuff because they have continued to just soar really every single week. I don't know. I don't know anyone into Moonbirds. Anyone have a buying into the bull thesis, or were able to catch at least some of this run up.
I have been keeping track with it, Jake. I can share some stuff, but first, if we have 8 minutes, 9 minutes, I can play Freebird here off my phone. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, I've been keeping up with Moonbirds for a couple of months now, and unfortunately, paper hander extraordinaire. I personally sold them once ETH started mooning because I was like, oh man, these things are gonna sit for a bit, but the thesis is that they got bought out in exactly the same way that Luca bought out Pudgy Penguin. So I believe it was this guy Orange Cap, or maybe the company he owns is Orange Cap. But he's been working on a trading card game that involves Pudgies and Moonbirds. So ideally, like the thesis is just that you have a smart founder who actually has a way to bring value to holders, but exactly to what OGD Farmer was saying, this is like the Pudgies of this cycle. So I would view this as a little bit better than a beta play because it's not just like a, hey, this will reach 1/10 of it. I think people are saying, hey, we saw what happened with Pudgies. Pudgies are still holding up so well even after the airdrop they did, and people were very happy with Pengu price and everything else. So now you have Moonbirds that were at a fraction of the price. So when they were bought out, they jumped in floor price from about 0.25. They went up to about 0.6 within 24 hours. They went all the way up to 1, fell back down to about 0.5, and now they're like at, I think they were at 4 ETH yesterday or 2 days ago before this whole fall down. Now they're about the 3.5 range. But yeah, it's really just a bet on what the founder is going to do with the brand. I think people know that the trading card game is already out there, but like you said, since then we've gotten some VC involvement. So it's really just a bet on, will they actually deliver in the same way that Tengu did. I definitely think it's going to be building up to a token eventually. So, I think the whole ecosystem is a pretty good bet. If you are priced out of Moonbirds, you can always play the Mythics. That's a pretty good way to get some exposure because those are only about 0.4, as opposed to the Moonbirds being at about 3. But yeah, I definitely think there was a lot of trades to be made in there. I'm personally a little bit wary of entering in at this high a price point, but I think like personally, I'm pretty bid on dips in this market climate. So if Moonbirds do pull back to about sub 3, I would be looking to get in. But I also do think Mythics are a pretty good entry point at 0.4 ETH, and I was buying some when they last went back to 0.3. So there's some really good exposure in there. There's some definitely good trades if you're into buying rares and stuff. I know this weekend there was a really big like 22 ETH sale on one of the mythics. Sorry, mythical moonbirds, that is. But yeah, it's just a thesis as like we saw this exact takeover happen with Pudgies and look how well they did. So I think this is the exact thesis right now for Moonbirds.
It's a pretty good narrative to get behind. I mean, you can just be like, hey, look at what Pudgies did. These guys are doing basically trying to do the exact same thing. Look, I mean, obviously worked out like absolutely excellently for Pudgies. So I think there can be quite a lot of hopium behind the Moonbirds to propel them even higher. I do agree. I'm not super like interested in hopping in at this very second. But I also, we've seen with NFTs they can get pretty crazy pretty fast. Even when you do think something stopped, just given the illiquidity nature of them.
Yeah, for sure. But let's parlay that into the rest of the changing. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I've sort of heard some mumblings and some chatter for the last couple of months that NFTs are back, and you are seeing a lot of people talk about it. We have punks just absolutely on a tear the last couple of weeks and months here. I'd say punks and moonbirds are really the big players. There's some big art sales as well for Fidenzas and stuff like that. But with all that said, we haven't really seen NFTs take off, not nearly what they were back in like 2021, 2022. Do you think that's something that could be coming, or is it just more isolated?
Yeah, I'm of the belief that they will. continue their run. I think we've seen like a nice steady build up right now. Whereas the major ones have been getting some steady price increase if you zoom out on some higher time frame. Some higher time frame charts, and then we're getting really nice activity from new mints as well, where there's some high quality projects. Seeing really nice multiples on new mints. We're it's not obviously anything like the 2021 mania that we saw, where there was some pretty insane mints, but I also think that's kind of how it was in the mania too, where it didn't start out like absolutely insane. It was kind of a bit of a slow build up, and then a kind of a blow off top, if you will, for a while. And it feels like the slow build up phase is going right now, and I think it could accelerate really at any time. Just in general, like my thesis that I've kept saying on NFT stuff is that I think it just has its place, and it just makes sense from a wanting to flex really in the digital space, in online space, where everyone continues to spend so much of their time, and they want to, and everyone is building their own digital identity, and as the bull market gets, I guess, later into the cycle, and as people have been making money on all these other coins and stuff, all these stocks, what have you, increasing in price, and they're continuing to make profits, so people have more and more, I guess, cash on hand. They want to use it naturally to flex. Obviously see that plenty in the real world with watches and sports cars and whatever. And I think they want to be able to do that in the digital world too. And NFTs are really like the best way to do that. So I can see them continuing to get crazier. I guess not crazier, because I don't think this is really crazy yet, but I think it can get into another nice bull market run here. Just as other stuff continues to go up, it's basically kind of like a leverage bet on like the market itself, if you will.
Yeah, very well said, Jake. I totally agree. And I would just caution, like, for people who are getting excited about NFTs, like, it is very exciting because I know me personally, and I think a lot of NVHQ members just have such a fondness for NFTs. They're so fun, and there was just so much money to be made. Just keep in mind, like, most of the movers right now, there is a very clear thesis behind them, right? So we talked about Moonbirds. I think that's the big winner right now of the NFT current market that's still going on. That is, proxy to what happened with Pudgy Penguins, VC backing and potential token coming in the future. So a lot of speculation on that. Stuff like Punks, that's like the OG NFT collection. So you're going to see some movement there. All of this is to say, I would just be careful of front running and speculating. Like, I think Jake and I both agree that there probably will be a bigger resurgence of NFTs. I don't think the answer is to just front run that and buy any old NFT collection, right? Like, I wouldn't just go out and buy a Bored Ape. Maybe if you're more glued into the circle and you think something's happening there, sure. But just consider the risk reward with everything. Like, NFTs are still very expensive for some of these old legacy collections. So I would just really consider, like, what are you risking to how much are you going to theoretically gain, and what is that time frame going to look like? I'm just putting that out because me personally, I've had that nostalgia calling at me like, oh man, wouldn't it be nice to rebuy a mutant ape or rebuy this art piece from art blocks that I loved. There's definitely the appeal, but just remember, sometimes it pays to wait for the confirmation or the conviction. So, like, I would just continue to wait, watch where it progresses. For now, if you are trading NFTs, I really would say like Pudgies, Moonbirds, stuff like that, buying on dips, great way to play it, flipping rares, whatever. I would stick to the collections that already have the speculation and volume built into them. Front running other NFT collections, I would say, is still very, very, very risky. So just be careful out there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, full agree. I think with anything, don't try and feel too much FOMO. Especially when I feel like there's still, in my opinion, there's still a good amount of time left for things to get a bit crazier. I don't think you have to FOMO into stuff right now. Do your research. find your own conviction in things before buying, and before you just praying on anything out there. See what has a good narrative behind it that people will want to buy into, and go from there. Yeah. Also, I mean, just keep in mind of new launches and stuff happening right now. There's been a lot of good runners from new mints, not just old stuff. And that's been really fun to get back there and mint NFTs again. Shout out Metaroba, who shared this really good report of it got reposted in general alpha. I'll link it right here. But for what to watch for NFT side of things for this week, has quite a bit of them on here. So you might need to take 10-15 minutes, research these different projects, see what you like, see what interests you, maybe see what people are talking about, and go from there and see if you want to play any of these. But yeah, big shout out Metaroba. If you find this helpful, obviously give them a bless. But this is a nice mint to watch for this next week. I think there's about like 10-15 projects on here, and also some other stuff that you can get potential whitelist for.
Great shout out there, Jake. I think that's a great flag. I mean, now's the perfect time to be tapping in because some of these new metas and just some of these like new collections that come out, they have ample opportunity. Like you were saying with Light, that coin launch, you had pretty much free reign to put in as much as you want, and you could have scaled it up. So it's still a great time to be tapped in. There's definitely more volume and more collections ripping than there used to be in the bear. I wouldn't really call this a bear anymore, but I would still call it a sneaky bull because it's not like pure euphoria every day. Stuff kind of does marinate a little bit, and there are some good shots to take. So keep taking full advantage of the channels that we got here. Are there any HQ channels you find yourself spending a lot of time in, Jake? I'm guessing shitcoins.
Yeah, good shout. Yeah, shitcoins for sure. NFTs now as well, which I honestly was fading NFTs for quite a long time. I think probably for a good reason too, because they weren't really doing much. But I'm definitely paying attention to the NFT channel a lot. Probably just as much as shitcoins, just because of so many of these mints have done really well, and I still think it's pretty under the radar. Where you're not seeing like crazy bot mint outs, and a lot of these can be kind of a bit of a slower cook. So it's kind of a nice change of pace from the shitcoin stuff, where it's just so up and down and violent. But a lot of these, you can hear about it and like still wait like an hour, and there's still stuff minting, and then check back later tonight, and maybe you get like a 5-10x because it went crazy. But and obviously, again, don't just DJ mint anything. Do your research. Make sure it makes sense. There's a good narrative, good thesis behind it, and all that. Good art, whatever. But yeah, I would say those two. Crypto trading as well has always been good. A lot of good discussion there, analysis on what's going on. I'm not really spending as much time there just because I'm not trading. I don't really want to trade too much during this chop, as far as like perps and majors go. Largely NFT shitcoins have been the main ones. Ethos stuff, still love Ethos. But yeah, a lot of good stuff out there. Abstract, people are still cooking like crazy. I've been fading abstract this whole time just because, from like a time management standpoint, not because I'm not bullish on it. But I love to see them still having a lot of cooks over there, and farming, and hopefully eventually that airdrop's really nice for people. That's a nice
Yeah,
little I would say NFT adjacent play as well.
yeah, 100%. I'm very curious to see what Abstract does for everyone in that ecosystem, how it does separately from Pengu, how Pengu reacts. But I also faded Abstract. My life's abstract enough as it is. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I? No, sorry. I'm very curious to see what happens with that. And I also did want to shout out a channel that I've really been spending a lot of time in lately is the TradFi Stocks and Investing channel. Prior to NFTs and crypto, I was not very good at stocks, but there are some like legit sharp people who are posting in there. And to your point with like how fast paced some of the stuff in shitcoins can be, I've really been enjoying the stocks and investing channel that we have, because there's just some really good crypto related plays where there are some companies that are on the New York Stock Exchange that you can trade on whatever brokerage you're using. But I've had a lot of good success lately just wheeling and selling option premium around some of these crypto related stocks. So, like, for people who haven't gone in there yet, I would totally recommend checking out our TradFi stocks and investing channel, because legitimately it's just been such a good side like income over the last couple months and weeks. And there's some really great threads in there. Shout out to Ricky. He posted a thread on Galaxy a few weeks ago, and that's like one of my biggest conviction plays since then. So just wanted to flag that out for people who might not have given it a peek yet. Maybe you haven't done a ton with stocks and are like, I don't know enough about it. It's a great resource, great place to poke around in.
Yeah, I love that. I admittedly don't do much with TradFi stuff. I probably should. Just hard to focus when there's already so many things there's already too many things I should say to focus on in the crypto world itself, and then like diving down the TradFi rabbit hole. But it's probably a smart thing to diversify a bit.
For sure, but at the same time, there is just so much going on. I think that's something that really like stood out to me this year, is just you can't trade everything. And like sometimes I would talk to people and just hear about burnout, or just like how do you stay in touch with everything? And it's like I don't, I really just kind of like draw a line of here's what I spend time looking at. I'm just gonna miss a ton of stuff. Like I think at a certain point, you just got to acknowledge like we're not in 2022 anymore, where everything was just NFTs, right? There's a bajillion different ways you can trade. So just focusing on what piques your interest is probably the best way to develop an edge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can pick a lane and still do pretty well as long as it's like a big enough ecosystem, or an ecosystem that you think can grow quite a lot, or pick two or three, and you kind of just stick to those, become an expert, become a big fish in a small pond, if you will. Know the rules of the game, all that. I think is a great way of going about it, and uh, not trying to focus on every little thing. I definitely I probably spread myself a little too thin myself, but I kind of have to for Wake and Jake stuff, and it's nice to keep track of the market. I just kind of want to know where all the opportunities are, but I do obviously draw a line on things like not really into ordinal stuff, not really into abstract. Some of these other things that I know are really good products, are really good projects, but just don't have the time. And I think that's completely fine to miss cooks in different areas, um, just for like a sanity sake and knowing, I guess, where your edge is.
100%, dude. Couldn't agree more.
But yeah, man. I don't have anything else on my list. Anything else from you, Ross, that you wanted to touch on, or anyone in the crowd? Have anything you wanted to dive into before we wrap it up here?
Sure, I would love to soft shill. And I call it a soft shill because I'm going to speak with my own personal conviction to anyone who's listening to Wake and Jake right now. Please don't borrow my conviction. Head on over to the TradFi stocks and investing thread afterwards to research more of this stock I'm about to shill. But again, I'm only shilling it in the context that I believe in it. I own a lot of it. Whether you buy it or not does not impact me in the slightest. It is a stock. You are not going to pump the market. So I'm not trying to get exit liquidity. I'm just saying all of this because like I've been in the boat of just person liked it, let me buy it. I would definitely research it. But with all of that said, Galaxy GLXY, it has been all I've been thinking about for the last 3 weeks. Shout out to our own MVP, Ricky, once again for the shout out on this. He shared an awesome thread, but I absolutely love this play, and I've been telling some people about it. It's become my largest position right now. Basically, they have the largest data center in the United States, soon to be the largest data center in the world. But they have a huge contract they've secured with CoreWeave, where they're basically just delivering AI and high power computing compute. They do, with these contracts, about $1.2 billion dollars a year in revenue. And they also have the eighth largest crypto treasury. Again, I know this sounds very shilly. Just keep in mind everything I said. But yeah, man, they're just like crushing it. They have really good revenue. They have a ton of crypto. They're brokering major crypto deals, and they only have a market cap of about $10 billion. In my mind, that's just insanely low given other companies and just how high they get off of like AI pivots and speculation. Just being involved in tech in my day job and having a lot of friends who are engineers, like AI compute is not going anywhere. That is just such massive infrastructure. Same thing as Zora, right? I love the bet on infrastructure. I think this company could really grow. I don't have any crazy price targets for anything. I'm not saying that, but what I do love about it is that the premiums for Galaxy are crazy. That is to say, if you sold a put or sold a covered call, you get so much premium for this stock compared to other stocks in the same price point. We could spend all day talking about option premiums and stuff like that, but I really just want to flag Galaxy for people who like maybe are somewhat involved in options. I know there's a few people in chat who trade it and like have had success with it, but it's just been an absolute behemoth of a premium that you can just passively make a couple hundred to a couple $1,000s off it every week. Ricky, if you're there, if you want to talk about it, Relic Hunter, whoever else, feel free. But I really wanted to shout it out because I've been just so convicted on it lately and wanted to share that with you guys.
It's some TradFi calls. I love it. Wake on Wake and Jake people. Alpha in all the areas. also, you used calling him Ricky. I always call him Ricky. I think we need an official clarification here on exactly how to pronounce your name, Ricky Mara. I'll do
It's
that.
Ricky.
Wait, what'd you say?
It's Ricky. Like I have a lot of background noise all the time. That's why I don't hop into the calls much.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, man.
Yeah, same. It's been 4 years. I think I never came on VC, maybe just once.
Dude, no way. Well, congrats on MVP, dog. Well earned.
Thank you.
Yes,
So Ricky, you
absolute legend, man.
I appreciate you shouting out Galaxy, dude. My bags, thank you.
It's still not up yet. Like it's like 6% for me in profits. But my hood bags are up 25%. So shout out to Hood.
Oh, let's go, dude. Yeah, there. Like I was saying, there's a lot of like crypto related stock trades that you can go with. But yeah, I'm with you. My like cost basis on Galaxy is barely in the green, but I've just been trading premiums off it every week. So like, regardless of what happens with the price, I'm pretty happy to just kick back and get some premium added to my account.
A recommended broker you guys use? Like, is it just Robinhood?
Yeah, it sadly is. I know Robinhood's a little controversial after the whole GameStop pausing the stop button fiasco years ago, and I know they do have some shady business practices, but it's just like, they're all kind of shady in their own right. There's pros and cons, but I really like Robinhood's UI in terms of trading options, so it's my preferred place to wheel and deal.
Wait. Oh yeah. Anything else? Anything else on anything we chatted about, or any new subjects you guys want to bring up before we wrap it up here?
I'd love to ask you, Jake, because I'm sure some people are wondering, we obviously were bullish a couple of weeks and months ago, and now you're saying like there's some chop and you're waiting. For people who are listening, like what are sort of the things that you wait for to go back in? Like in your mind, what would be the okay, I'm deploying capital button? What do you need to see in order to think, okay, it's go time?
I would say, yeah, it's hard to answer because I am still deploying capital. It's just I'm doing it on like a very individual project basis. That's kind of mainly, I guess, where I exist is on chain with just super lower cap stuff. Because I think the environment for that is plenty good enough despite whatever majors are doing, chopping around. And that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. So I guess I'm not really looking at like a time frame. I guess for major stuff, probably, once we get into September, I'll kind of look back at things, and if there's a spot that makes sense, then I'll start hopping back into some different stuff. But for right now, I'm kind of just waiting. I'm slightly expecting we get possibly another decent sized dip. So I don't want to really front run that and get too excited. When traditionally it's just such a, I guess, lower volume choppy environment in the summertime, especially after we had this big run up. I'm kind of just anticipating that. So I don't know. I guess I don't really have a great answer there. I just more do it on a very case by case basis. I don't really have. It's just the way that I've been trading, and I probably will continue to trade for the rest of the cycle. Is I'm not really looking at like super long term bags of anything. I'm more so trying to get in and out on like either same day plays or like 2-3 weeks, and then out. I would say so. It's hard to really say like I want to like really get in like 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. The way that I guess I specifically play it is I'm pretty day to day, and I just I look at all the information available, and then I could change my decision on a whim tomorrow. But yeah. So not really a great answer, but is what it is by the way that I like to trade.
Oh, dude, I love it. I mean, I think that's the whole idea is just getting different perspective, and like just sharpening the edge that we all have as traders. I think is so interesting and important. And like I see a lot in the trading card chat that we have in MVHQ, and like I talk to a lot of other people. There's just so many different ways you can make money in an emerging market. So it's always just interesting for me to hear about and talk to people about, what is sort of the thought behind a lot of these trades. I think taking it on an individual basis makes a ton of sense. And I'm curious, just based on what you're saying, right? Because I'm playing it very similarly. Like I'm not necessarily married to any timelines and just kind of take it how it comes. Once we have seen some of this pump, like we did a couple weeks ago, I saw every now and then you'd be posting about closing longs or, securing the bag and the profits. Is there any sort of just feel that you could tell some of the listeners right now that goes into knowing when to close a position and taking profits? Because I do feel like that's so much more important in 2025 than it might have been in 2022, because there are just so many things like we talked about, right? Like you can't keep track of everything. And as a result, I feel like you see a lot of assets go crazy and then pull back a lot. There is some blue chips to be had, but I think a lot of collections we've seen, like they do really great for a couple of days and then they sort of cascade back. So just kind of curious, in your mindset, once you are in the green, you've taken a trade, it's going well, like what are some of the things you look for in terms of, okay, I'm going to get out now or just take the money off the table?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say my answer is probably like stuff that a lot of people have heard already, but I think it rings true. It's like the feelings of euphoria. If you're taking screenshots, right, and you're sending them to like your friends and stuff, then I feel like that's probably a really good indicator. If you're looking at buying some type of like luxury items or whatever, that's probably a really good indicator. If you're just like thinking about what would happen if this goes like another 10x or whatever, that's probably a good indicator. Um, from like a perp side of things, I would definitely say if you see people getting into perps who are not normally into perps, like that's a really good indicator. I've noticed that one especially time and again. Like if you go into like the crypto trading channel, if you're like if you frequent there quite often, you kind of know the people who generally post there. But if there's new people kind of getting in and like asking questions about how to do perps, um, obviously, well, like we're an MHQ, we're always here to help people, but also that can be quite a decent indicator that okay, the market's been really hot for a while, and people are making money, and like even if they don't really know a huge amount about what they're doing, and that's usually a good indicator that people are over leveraged, and we might get a flush or a pullback in the shorter term. I think just in general, like I've learned that Early, I would say I learned this because I feel like I constantly have to tell myself this. But even if you are really bullish on something, and you do think it can go a lot higher, if it does run up a lot in a shorter period of time, like taking profits is never a bad thing. It usually, like, once you do it, you usually like immediately feel like some nice relief. Um, that position is secured. And look, it always can dip, right? It always can dip from that moment, and you might be able to get an even better entry or like an even bigger bag of whatever you're already holding. But it allows you to kind of reset, level set, and think about more. Okay, do I really want like this large position, this big a percentage of my overall portfolio to be in this specific play? So I think it's never really a super bad thing to take profits after a big run up, even if you are decently bullish that it's going to go even higher from wherever you're taking profits at.
I love it, dude. Yeah, thank you so much for all the insight there. It's always been my favorite part of Wake and Jake is just hearing the perspective from you as a bona fide trader, and just even if we've heard it dozens of times over the last 5 years, I think it's always a great reminder. So appreciate you giving us some insight.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, I listen to my own insight. We'll see.
Dude, I feel that.
A lot of times I don't. Right. Yeah, man. Appreciate you, Ross. Thank you for coming on, man. Really good analysis from you. Really good questions. Really appreciate you hopping in, spending the time here, and everyone else for hopping in. Anything else before we wrap it up here?
Thanks for having me, dude. And yeah, just to everyone listening, guys. Like, there's just so much good alpha out there, and the channels are still there. I saw your announcement the other day, Jake, and just really resonated just how useful MVHQ has been over the years, and like still continues to be useful. And I've talked a lot just through the different shows I've been on and used to have at HQ. Like, as traders, we're always just growing and developing edges, and like there's just been so many places to develop the edge if you just hone in on a channel or thread in HQ. And I think just so much of like the game has shifted to, I would say, like a lot more personal trading. I don't really have a cause, or really, like, I don't know where this rant is going basically, but all of this is just to say, like, I would continue to think just individually, as traders, as crypto continues to advance, because like I think it's just not as easy as a game as it used to be. Like, obviously 2021 and 2022 was so sick because there was just like free money every single night, and all we had to do is hop onto VC and crush it. But there's still really easy money to be had. It's just a matter of like putting in the work to find it. So just wanted to shout out again, like, truly there's so many good channels here, and like all of these plays that I'm talking about, Galaxy and Zora and everything else, it all just comes from the HQ channels. So we'll just continue. For anyone listening in, if you're out here trading, if you're having FOMO, or you're like, I haven't had that big trade yet, just find what works for you and continue to develop it, guys. Like, that's what the game's all about. That's what the show is here for. And yeah, thank you, Jake. Really appreciate it, dude. All the advice and just listening to you over the years has really helped just continue to refine me as well as others as traders. So appreciate you having me on today, and it's always a pleasure.
Love it, man. Super well said as always, Ross. Appreciate you coming by, man, and everyone else for joining us today. Have a good rest of the week, rest of your Monday. See y'all in the chats. Thanks, everyone.
You guys will now play 9 minutes of Freebird. I'm just kidding. See you guys.